Hey guys, Mana here bringing you another Warlock guide. This time I'm going to be talking about stats and what they all do. Alright, so the only stats that you should care about in any sense of the word care are hit, haste, crit, mastery, and your most important one, which is intellect. Alright, so first of all, intellect. It's really simple. It'll give you 1 spell power per point of intellect. In case you're wondering what spell power is something that makes your spell stronger. It'll make him hit harder, whatever. It just makes them better. It doesn't make them all better in the same way, thanks to talent, spell power coefficient, these things. They all gain a different benefit out of it, but suffice it to say, it just makes them better. In addition to this, 1 intellect will also give you a little bit of crit and a little bit of mana as well. Alright, so hit rating. What the hell is that? Well, basically hit rating reduces your chance to miss. So remember that casters have a 17% chance to miss a raid boss, and by increasing your hit rating, you can reduce this to 0% so that you never miss. So how much hit rating do you need to get to 17%? Well, you're going to need 1742 hit rating, but you should remember that you should never ever sacrifice intellect in order to increase your hit rating. So in other words, I do not want to see those 40 hit gems on any warlocks, okay? But you should note, alright, take note, alright, take your notebook out and note this. If you're not hit capped, hit rating is your most important stat besides intellect. So when you reforge your gear, feel free to increase your hit rating. In fact, don't feel free, do it. Do it. And remember that once you're hit capped, remember 17%, 1742 hit rating, any additional hit becomes worthless. Alright, so next up is critical strike rating, better known as crit. Basically, this is going to increase the chance for your spells to crit, and a spell that crits is going to do double the damage, which is great, especially since even our dots can crit. But at the same time, because it just takes a lot of crit rating in order to increase the crit percentage, it takes a ton of crit rating. The stat just tends to lose value when compared to others because it just takes so much to increase it. Alright, so Mastery, it's an interesting stat. It is different for every spec. For Affliction, you got Potent Afflictions, which is going to increase your periodic shadow damage, the damage of your dots, by 1.63% for every point in Mastery that you have. For Demonology, you got Master Demonologist, which is going to increase the damage of your demon and the damage of yourself by 2% for every point in Mastery that you have. And lastly, for Destruction, you got Fiery Apocalypse, which is going to increase your fire damage by 1.35% for every point in Mastery that you have. Alright, do note though that when I say Mastery points, I'm not talking about, the Mastery you see in your gear. That's Mastery rating. You're going to need 179.28 Mastery rating in order to increase your Mastery by 1 point. So when you look at it, it's a pretty expensive stat, and that's why it tends to be so low on the stat priorities. And finally, there's Haste. Now, this stat does a couple things for us, so it can get a little bit complicated, and you might have to rewatch this part a couple times. Alright, so first of all, 128.05 Haste rating is going to give you 1% Haste. So yeah, remember that. Okay, so the first thing that Haste does for us is it reduces the global cooldown. But remember that it cannot reduce the global cooldown below 1 second. Alright, Haste is also going to make our dots tick faster. And the formula for determining the new tick time, the new time between ticks, is old tick time divided by 1 plus haste percentage equals new tick time. So let's look at Unstable Affliction. This spell, it ticks every 3 seconds, but with haste it's going to tick faster. So let's say you have 20% haste. You have to divide 3 by your haste percentage plus 1. So it's going to be 3 divided by 1.20 or 1.2, and it's going to give you 2.5 seconds between ticks. So then what happens is that by reducing the time between your dot ticks, you're also going to be reducing the time of the dot. So in order to make sure that dots don't just become insanely fast, Blizzard made it so that once you reach a certain haste level, your dots will gain an additional tick. These are the haste plateaus, the haste thresholds that I've mentioned in the past. Alright, so how do you determine when you're going to gain these extra ticks? Well, let's look at Unstable Affliction again, but this time let's assume you have 9% haste. So you have 3 seconds, which is the normal time for Unstable Affliction to tick, divided by 1.09, and that's going to give you 2.75 seconds between ticks, down from 3. So then let's divide the 15-second duration of unstable affliction by the 2.75 seconds between ticks. So you got 15 divided by 2.75 equals 5.4. 5.4 means that you're going to get 5 ticks, the same as before. This is because it's going to round down. So in this example, you're going to have 5 ticks times 2.75 seconds between ticks equals a 13.75 second unstable affliction, down from 15 seconds. So in order to gain an additional tick, you need to have enough haste to be able to round up the ticks instead of down. In this example, we were at 5.4 ticks, so if you go up to 5.5 ticks, you'll be able to round up and get 6. So to see how much haste percentage you need to achieve this, just divide the 15-second unstable affliction by 5.5 ticks. That's going to give you 2.72 seconds between your ticks. So that means 3 seconds, which is the normal time for unstable affliction to tick, divided by 2.72, that's going to give you 1.1, which equals 10% haste, and that is your first haste threshold. So the last thing that haste does for us is it lets us cast faster. So for instance, if you have a spell that takes 3 seconds to cast, the more haste you have, the less time it'll take to cast that spell. So how do you determine the new cast time of a spell? Well, you divide the old cast time by 1 plus haste rating divided by 12805. But if you want to count buffs, such as the 3% from Dark Intent and the 5% from Shadow Priest or Balance Druids, the formula becomes the old cast time divided by 1 plus haste rating divided by 12805 times the 5% aura times 3% from Dark Intent. So assuming all buffs are in place, a player with 1000 haste rating will cast a 2.5 second spell in, a whole bunch of math later, 2.29 seconds. And that about does it for this stat guide, guys. I've included a list in the description below that shows the thresholds for new ticks for our dots, so hopefully you guys just found that useful. Before I end this, I wanted to say that from now on I'll be uploading guides on Fridays instead of Thursdays. I just think it's going to make it a lot easier for me with the way my schedule is going to be for a while. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and if you enjoyed what you saw, feel free to like and to subscribe. Later, guys.